Hello everybody and welcome to this video where I will be explaining what traumas are, how much they can affect you in your growth, and exactly how you can get rid of them, how you can go through them, and how to continue in your life to find the answers. This is Kuma Wisdom, and let's get straight into the video. So what are traumas? Traumas are essentially flashbulb memories that are caused by some sort of traumatic similar event that happened to you in your past life, usually as a child. And whenever you smell things or whenever you see things or feel things, it reminds you of that traumatic experience. So it usually triggers an emotional response. That's 9 times out of 10 very negative, very sad, and it's very, heartbreaking. That's usually what traumas do to you. And so what most people don't realize, 90% of the human race is already walking around with a trauma. Everybody, once you become self-aware, I'd say, you start developing traumas in school. Most people in rough neighborhoods start a lot younger, developing these traumas. It's basically your brain going back to that moment in which something dramatic happened to you and telling you in your current moment and when you're living and saying that you're in danger. That's where the anxiety comes from. That's where the sadness comes from, because you often don't have an answer for why that event happened to you and you don't understand it. So your brain is stuck on threaten mode and you feel like you need to stay safe, so you don't venture into it. So that's something you don't want to do. And I'm encouraging you guys to face your traumas and figure out answers to them, because you're going to try to self-improve, you're going to try to grow, and hell, you're going to probably by now be doing very well. And at some point, you're going to get stuck because you still don't have answers to some of the things in your past, right? You don't want to be at a crowd waving at people, during your celebration speech or working on a video or painting a project, and you smell something or see something and you mess up the painting, or you're happy in the moment and then your heart drops and you start feeling really worried and upset and sad because you didn't venture into this thing. You don't want something to take control of your life, and that's the point of self-improvement. You take control of your life 100%, and that means your past. So the very first step to figuring out how to solve your trauma is solving your past, understanding why things happened, and not taking a victimish mindset to it. That's one of the most important things that comes with solving your trauma. And it's very blunt to say so. Most psychologists will never tell you like it happened for a reason and it probably happened for the better so that you can be as strong as you are today. Most of them are gonna pat you in the back and say, oh, it's better you're not there anymore. And I say, no, that's not what worked for me. I didn't go to psychology to begin with, but no, the best method that worked for me was facing that some of these things happen for a reason. And if I didn't go through that pain, if I didn't go through half of that stuff, I'd probably still be where I was, back then in middle school and high school, pretending to be somebody else and, fitting in. It's like, nah, this type of stuff builds character. Pain builds character. And that's a part of understanding your trauma, is that it built you to be where you are today. And though it wasn't okay for that person or for that event to happen to you, it was necessary to build who you are now. That's a part of conquering your trauma, is understanding that process. The next part, like I said, is the victim mindset. So in most cases, like I said, your trauma builds from when you're a child. And because of that case, it's often, you get bullied, or maybe you fell in love with your first high school sweetheart, things like that. And again, it can be more dramatic to murder or, perhaps rape for some women or even guys, that it happens. And, for those two severities, I would say at that point to seek counsel. You can try and do it on your own. I encourage you to try and do it on your own. But if it bears to be too much and you need help, then I say seek it. But for all of the lighter things above, things that aren't so traumatic that, it ends your life, so to speak, they're not physically happening to you, then I say you can do it on your own. I say you should try and do it on your own, because nobody understands you better than you, and there's nobody who's going to be able to process that information. What a therapist really does is they just sit down and they listen. That's really all a therapist does. They listen and they write things down and they give you suggestions. I mean, YouTube does that, right? So I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying, for less severe things, I say you try it on your own for that reason. And what you need to understand in most of these cases, when you're younger, is that most of the time when you're bullied, most of the time when people treat you wrong as kids, first of all, kids are, very honest to a fault. Kids don't think so much when it comes to people's emotions. They just act based on the hierarchy at school and based on what's going on around them. They want to fit in as much as you do. So they do mean things, they say mean things just to stay at the top so they don't, get kicked out of the quote unquote cool kids club and, be treated unwell, because that's the worst thing, right? You have to factor that in as well. It was not okay for these kids to bully you, and I don't encourage and say bullying is okay for anybody. I think bullying is one of the scummiest things on the planet that you can do, but you have to understand and factor some of the things that you as a person might have been doing that attributed to some of the bullying. For me, myself, I always was never comfortable in my own skin, so I would watch TV and act like characters and, stay out of character and say and quote characters and do anything silly that remotely didn't remind me of myself, because I wasn't comfortable and confident enough in my own character of who I was as a person. So it made very easy for people to not take me seriously and bully me and, torture me, so to speak, mentally, because it's like, you're not even confident in yourself. Why the hell am I gonna respect you as a person, as a kid at the time? It's like, you don't respect yourself. I don't value you. You don't value yourself. So I had to understand that when focusing and coming to head with my trauma of anti-socialism, and understanding that I've kind of warranted some of this to be done to me by, more or less, acting in a certain manner that, made me look like a target. And again, it wasn't okay, and I don't think it is till this day, but it's an explanation, and that's what your brain is looking for, an explanation. And the explanation I came up with is I made myself an easy target. Instead of having confidence in myself like the other kids did, or, instead of being myself and just being more self-defensive and more aggressive and standing up for myself, I let it happen and I didn't speak up for myself. That's another reason why that type of stuff happened. So, in most cases, that's exactly what anti-socialism comes from, and that's exactly what can build in most people. That's exactly what's the result of that. And then there's the relationships, the high school sweethearts, the later college years, you date somebody for 5 years or less, and you fall hard, and then you break up and spend all these years in sorrow wondering why the hell you can't have this person. And in most cases, the simple answer is it's not meant to be, and that it's for the better. You could give somebody the world, and sometimes they're just still not grateful enough. You can look at it in that perspective, and in some cases with women in this generation, that's very much the case. But and sometimes that's not it at all. Sometimes you're just not compatible. Did you do everything you could have? And then if you can honestly sit there in the mirror and answer yes, then at that point, you try to understand the character of the other person and realize what was in it for them and what was in it for you. Did you take them out enough? Did you just give them, goods nonstop? Did you pamper them too much? Because then you lose your hierarchy as the male in the relationship, and it makes you an easy pushover target. That's an easy reason for you to be able to, be pushed over. And then eventually, you're just a beta, and no woman really wants a beta. They like to be dominated. And that they made you stronger for it. It wasn't okay, but you can understand exactly why they happened to you, process that information, and then move on with your life. That's exactly what dealing with your trauma means, and that's exactly what dealing with your trauma entails. Taking your life in the past, understanding why it happened, and in some cases you won't have an answer, but understanding that's better now for a reason, because you're stronger as a person. You have received attributes from that pain, and it's made you a better person in general. So yeah, thanks for watching.